I thought it was kind of part of like universal humanity that we're taught to be kind to older people, that bullying the elderly isn't going to win you any points. And unfortunately, the Bow twins learned that the hard way. The press is kind of deeming this as a battle of the experts, right? It's going to depend on which experts the jury believes. But is it really? Because I think we're stretching the limits of the word expert. We all know that the prosecution is doing what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to discredit the defense's witnesses. But what they're not realizing is that someone like Dr. Resnik has been on both sides of this. And we'll talk about that more in a minute. But I don't believe you're a true expert unless you're able to really look at both sides. And Dr. Resnik has been called in sometimes for the prosecution and sometimes for the defense, because there are times he finds people legally sane. They knew exactly what they were doing. And then there's other times he says, nope, that one shouldn't be held responsible for their actions. But then you look at those expert witnesses that the prosecution's using for their rebuttal. Dr. Mack was a really good example, but we're going to see it again on Monday too. These are not the type of witnesses you call when you want someone who's unbiased. And I'm going to talk about Park Dietz. You're going to get a 2 for today because I'm going to talk about Park Dietz. I could go on all day about that guy. These are specific witnesses who are paid to get up on the stand, and no matter what, this person cannot be insane. They will come up with a million other things that they were experiencing because that's what Park Dietz always did. Now, first, let's talk about Dr. Resnik. So his diagnosis of Lindsay is that she did have a mild mania. He believes it's bipolar 2 with severe depression. He has asked, did you consider postpartum psychosis? He says yes, that she had a history of anxiety that increased after the birth of each child. So there is a pattern of it increasing each time. Based on the diagnostic manual, I guess there are a number of different symptoms. Testify that Lindsay exhibited 7 of the 9 symptoms. And I like the way he broke down really that there's 5 reasons that a person would kill their children, right? So there's the altruistic, which is out of love versus hostility. They're trying to do the best for their child. He testified this is what Andrea Yates was doing. Hers was an altruistic killing. He also says they're acutely psychotic, which means they're out of touch with reality and they're acting on a psychotic belief. He believes Lindsay Clancy is both of these first 2 things. Then the third one is a child maltreatment, this physical abuse that leads to the child's death. Unwanted child. This is the child has become an inconvenience. The parent doesn't like the life they're living. They don't like being a parent, and they kill for convenience. This is classic Susan Smith. I'm going to talk about her more in a minute. Or there's spousal revenge, where you kill the kids to get even with your spouse. None of these last 3, so the maltreatment, the unwanted child, or spousal revenge, he said right up on the stand under testimony, none of these were the case with Lindsay Clancy. When talking about the medical providers and talking about, did she tell them about her reactions to the medicines? He says, yes, he felt like based on what he's learned about her, that she was actually a pretty sophisticated patient. She was forthcoming in what she was feeling, the anxiety, all of the things that she was undergoing. The one thing she wasn't fully forthcoming about was these intrusive thoughts about harming the children because she was afraid that they would be taken away if she did that. He said at Tewksbury, she is still experiencing suicidal thoughts and ideations. It's required to have a one-on-one staff member at all times. And her ability to do so, like her ability to harm herself at Tewksbury, is limited, which is why she hasn't accomplished that. He does say that she could not be held criminally responsible for her actions. On cross-examination, he's a hard man to discount. They talk a lot about, why didn't she tell people she was thinking about harming the children? Why didn't she admit that? And at one point, the prosecution said the most disgusting thing. She said, so it's better to kill them than to have them taken away, which was immediately stricken from the record. After that, the defense rests, and then the prosecution gets a chance to put up their rebuttal witness. The first one is Dr. Avram Mack. He's a psychologist. He went through the criminal file. He went through the records from Tewksbury, Spalding, Brigham and Women's, all of her outpatient providers, McLean. It felt to me like he did a good deal of research on what's brought us to this point and what Lindsay is really suffering from. He came to his conclusions based on the McNaughton standard, which the first one is, were they experiencing a mental disorder at the time? And then the second one is, at the time of the event? What was their state of mind? Did they have the capacity to know if they were doing wrong? And did they have the capacity to conform to the law? So that's basically what he judged here. He interviewed Lindsay twice earlier this year, on April 10th and April 12th of 2026. He found her to be friendly, cooperative. She maintained eye contact, and she made no abnormal movements. She was calm and rational the entire time. He's not convinced she has bipolar, even though she does experience several stressors. She has remorse, sadness. She feels an estrangement from Patrick. She feels an estrangement from the world. She's troubled by her physical injury. That is what he observed. That is not what she admitted to. In his conclusion, she has what she experienced was a major depressive episode, which is part of major depressive disorder. Major depressive order is a condition that displays changing moods, guilt, appetite, sleep disorder, death or the thought of suicide, poor energy. So those are the things she's experiencing. He does not believe that qualifies as either postpartum psychosis or bipolar disorder. So he confirms that he ruled out bipolar because he doesn't see any place where she had a manic episode or a hypomanic episode. He says that yes, she was suffering from a mental disease or defect, but it is major depressive disorder, and that she could appreciate and she had the capacity to understand her actions. And I got to be honest, after that, I was like, oh, okay, that's a different way of looking at it. So it may really be the battle of the experts. Until Kevin Reddington steps up and he immediately starts talking about this guy being contacted. He's part of the umbrella group under Park Dietz and Associates. I wish to hell I did not Google Park Dietz, but now I know way too much about that fucking man. And I'm making another video after this because I don't believe Avram Mack's testimony to be a non-biased professional opinion. I think he's paid to come in and always say that the person is 100% sane, and they'll use any other excuse as to why they did what they did, but they are paid to come in and say the person's sane. I'm going to do another video right after this. Please come back.